Hi guys, my name is Lucky Hell and I do this. Yeah, kind of, but with a sword. Welcome to my channel. You've probably noticed that this is not really much of a channel yet, and I'm really going to work on improving that this year. I'm always overwhelmed and blown away by how many fans and supporters and followers I have on this crazy journey as a sword swallower that is still, I pinch myself sometimes that this is my actual job. And I know that YouTube and videos is a really fun way to interact with people, and I've been asked a lot by the people that follow me to start to make videos, and I find them really difficult to do. I've already tried to do this like 100 times and I get to a point where I feel like I say something stupid or I go like, and then I blah and I stop. So I'm just gonna like throw this one out there, and I apologize if it's a little bit shit in either format, content or anything. I'm just gonna do it because so I thought I'd start off my first video with the most common questions I get asked, because I get asked a lot of questions, obviously, because being a professional at sword swallowing is quite a unique and strange job to do. And I've noticed that a lot of the questions are the same questions that people want to know. I get asked a lot on Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat, and I never want to ignore anyone that asks a genuine question. Anyone that like follows me and supports me, if they write to me with a genuine comment or question, I always reply. But when it comes to asking in-depth questions, I just don't really have the time or energy or ability to answer all of those by writing to every single person. Okay, so I'm just gonna go for it. The most common question I get asked is, how did I get into sword swallowing? And it's quite a long story. And I'll try to compress it a little bit. I'm someone that turns even really short, not stories into full-on tangent stories anyway, so I'll try to compress this. But basically, I never planned to be a sword swallower at all, ever, and thought never crossed my mind, honestly, at all. When I was living in Finland, I started to be involved in performance art and sideshow because that was all around me. My partner at the time and all my friends were all doing this kind of art and performance, and we have some friends from Las Vegas called Swing Shift Sideshow, and they would come every now and then to perform. We'd put on shows for them or get them booked in places, and they're sword swallowers as well. And even with seeing sword swallowing all the time in my face and starting to perform sideshow stuff myself, honestly never crossed my mind, because for me sword swallowing was this like holy grail of sideshow, and not just something you can just like do or learn. And it was my partner at the time, UC Paradise. I don't know if I can do a split screen. I'm gonna try. If I can't, I'm just like throwing airport gang signs. So UC Paradise was, you know, it's my best friend now, but we were together for many years. And one day out of the blue, he was like, I'm gonna learn sword swallowing. I was like, okay, I don't think that's like a really good idea. It's really dangerous, and you're a good performer anyway, you don't need that. And he was like dead set on this plan to learn sword swallowing, and I was like, okay. And I remember the day that it happened. We were in the basement with a friend of ours, Vissa, and UC was, you know, starting step one of practicing to sword swallow, and it was pretty clear that it wasn't going to happen for him. It was, yeah, he's not swallowing anything. I'm kind of surprised how the guy can swallow food. It was really hard to watch, and he was pretty like determined, and he kept trying, and I was pretty awful to watch him. And it was one of those things where after watching him try and have this like big inability to touch anything to his tongue, I was just kind of like, I'll give it a go. And it worked. The first step worked, and it was like, oh fuck, I think I might be a sword swallower. And then it was like, okay, let's try step two. Step two, it worked. And the next step is kind of like a sword. I didn't have any swords, but step 2 worked, and we all just looked at each other, and I remember Vissa was like, fuck, well I guess at least there's one sword swallower in the family. And it was just really bizarre and strange, and my whole life changed in this moment for sure. I went to bed that night, and I remember at this point in my life I was performing as a hobby, and I started performing sideshow and stuff like this just as a means to travel, because I wanted Germany or Italy and be paid to visit countries, because I was born in Australia and travel for me is like the #1 thing in the world I wanted to do and I want to do now. I had kind of decided that whilst I'm making somewhat interesting shows and I'm, you know, a pretty good performer, I wasn't really feeling totally married to the idea of pursuing it. And I just thought, you know, I'll probably stop, because I'm not breaking any boundaries and I'm not like the best in the world at what I do, and I'm just, you know, like it's fun, but I want to see something amazing on stage. And I guess I wasn't convinced that what I was doing was so amazing. So I basically started the process of going back to school and thinking about what I wanted to do in university. And this night, after step 1 and 2 in the basement, I went to bed and I just was like, holy shit, you know, seeing my name in lights, lucky hell, sword swallower, and like all these things. And I was like, oh, I can put rhinestones on my swords, you know, like, I didn't even have any swords, but I was just like, the possibilities. And the next day I emailed my friends Swing Shift Sideshow, and one thing that's like very well known in the sword swallowing world is you don't just ask a sword swallower to teach you. And that's something that people ask me on a weekly basis. And it's actually like a full-on faux pas. Like you're not just supposed to do that. It's supposed to be mysterious. It's not cool to kind of ask. And I was very like, I'm not gonna like ask them to teach me, but I just emailed them and I said, look, I think I can swallow swords. Like, what should I do? And Kel Victor was like, don't stick something down your throat every day. Research. And that's what I did for about a year. And I didn't swallow anything in a year. And after that year, Swing Shift came to Finland, and I asked them if they'd bring me a sword, and they did. And I still have that sword. It's my Japanese katana. And the day they arrived, took them from the airport, put them in home, sat down, and they were like, you want to swallow? And I was like, now? They were like, yeah, girl. And so yeah, I swallowed the katana that day in my living room on my knees, and it went about 70 or 80% of the way down on the first go. So for me, it was an anatomical thing. I never trained, I never planned, I never forced. It was someone else was trying to do it. I was like, okay, let me try, and it was anatomical. I did have to practice controlling the gag reflex, and I did have to practice controlling my esophagus, you know, so if I panicked or felt stressed, you know, it clenches up and stuff like that. So yeah, that's about as short of a story as I can give of how I started sword swallowing. Ooh, I feel like I've been talking for an hour already. Okay, that leads me to the next question that I get asked a lot is, do I have a gag reflex? Yes. When I brush my teeth and I brush my tongue, if I go too far back like everyone else, it doesn't feel too good at all. Some of the swords that I have are a little more difficult to swallow, and I definitely have to really be controlling the gag reflex when I swallow them. And those are the swords I don't swallow when I'm working every night, like in a big show. Usually when I swallow a brand new sword, it's a little bit of, I have to control the gag reflex. I have a few swords that I use all the time that now are just, I don't have to think most of the time at all. Yes, I have a gag reflex. Oh my God, I suck at this. On par with the gag reflex question is for sure, are my swords sharp? And the answer is no, they're not sharp. No. If they were sharp, they would for sure slice and dice me inside, and yeah, no go. So what else do I get asked? People ask me if sword swallowing is dangerous. Yes, it's very dangerous. For one, you're sticking something down into your throat. This is dangerous. I always swallow swords in stiletto heels. That's kind of when I started sword swallowing, I wanted to trademark myself. So I kind of had to research and saw what wasn't out there, and the whole glamorous, sexy, rhinestoned, ultra glam thing wasn't out there. So that's how I present the act, because I never wanted to do anything like anyone else, because you know that's their thing that they've created, their style, their vibe. So stilettos are a big part of my aesthetic, and I've thought a few times over the years that maybe I'll buy smaller shoes, and I've tried with the smaller shoes, and they're a lot easier to move and dance and traverse stages and balance in a lot easier, but I just can't do it. I can't in a small heel. I need to have a proper stiletto. It's as important as having rhinestones on my sword. If I'm really nervous, like if it's a premiere night, or if someone like Franco is watching me, or there's other performers, like sometimes the Cirque du Soleil show is in town and we'll get tickets to each other's shows, and if I know they're watching me, I'm like super nervous, and my heart is beating like crazy when I'm on stage, and I can hear it going boom, 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 boom on the blade while it's in me. So yes, it's super dangerous, especially in giant heels. One thing I get asked surprisingly a lot is, where did I buy my swords? And this is something kind of like asking a magician for his tricks or tips, or where he bought his stuff. It's really hard to find good swords. Swords aren't easy to get, and even sword swallowers don't talk too much to each other about where they buy swords, because you know you want to have unique swords, and you want to, you know, it's a thing. I buy them all around the world when I can. I'm always on the lookout for good swords, but they're really hard to find. The right ones for sword swallowing. There's not one kind of sword that is good for sword swallowing. It's very much your own personal preference, and it's not easy, I can say that. I have a lot of swords that I've purchased over the years that I've never used. They're just sitting in a drawer looking pretty, and they're ready to swallow. They're polished down and everything, and they're just, once you get them in your hands and you swallow them the first time, you're like, oh yeah, it's not so, you know. So I have a lot of swords, and I usually travel with 4 or 5 maximum, often only 3. So I can't tell you where I bought my swords. Another question I get asked so much is, what are my tips for sword swallowing? And I'm sorry to all the people that really want to learn and they really want my help. Part of me kind of wants to like give you something that's just, I can't give anyone tips on learning to sword swallow over the internet. That would be really dangerous, and I wouldn't want to be giving anyone advice or telling them to swallow anything that might hurt them, you know. It is dangerous. Definitely I'm not gonna comment on Instagram or on Snapchat how to swallow swords or tips. The only thing I would say, that if you really want to sword swallow, please don't stick anything down your throat, and don't try to teach yourself. Wait until if you really want to be a sword swallower, like that's your dream and it's meant to be, I'm a firm believer that eventually a sword swallower will come into your life and mentor you in some kind of way, or say, okay, I will help you, or this kind of thing. You know, it will happen in the right time, and that will come into your life when it's meant to happen. And I really don't want anyone to hurt themselves, so please don't stick things down your throat. Only take advice from a sword swallower that you are meeting in person. You know, try not to do things off the internet. Ooh, it's a scary thought. So I'm not being a dick when I say no, I can't give you advice. It's more about, like, if you're in Canada or Germany and I'm writing text on a phone and you hurt yourself, like, oh my god, no, just no, please, no. I think that's it. What else do I get asked? I'm gonna try and keep this like super short, because I know already I like don't even want to watch myself back. It's painful to me. I know, can you see me wringing my hands? It's because I'm like really nervous. I don't know what's wrong. I can perform to like 1,000 or 20,000 people with ease, but have me sitting here trying to be talking and cool and so what else? I'll just I guess the last thing that gets asked or mentioned to me a lot is usually by men, and it's usually after they've seen me perform, or yes, on Facebook and so on. I get a lot of these messages, but it's usually after they've seen me perform and they're like, wow, swallowed a sword, that's impressive. And I'm like, yeah, thanks. Like, well, can you you know, and there's always this implication of, you know, how does their penis come into what I do as a profession, you know? So often goes back to that, I've noticed, which for me is like really weird, because like this is my job and I get paid to do this, and it's really dangerous, and the last thing on my mind is telling you whether I could do that with your genitals. Like, you know, like that's so strange to me, and it's pretty offensive and misogynistic, I have to say. Probably the only question that makes me like annoyed. I don't care if I get asked 1,000 times if my swords are sharp, when for me obviously they're not, but like I'm not going to get annoyed at anyone, because most people don't know anything about sword swallowing, and then when they meet someone who's a sword swallower, of course you're going to ask a bunch of questions, and of course I've heard the same question like 1,000 times, and that's totally cool, hence why I'm doing this video. But bringing like the idea of your penis into a conversation with me, bleh, like that's not very cool. So that's an annoying question, and usually when I get that, it's someone's trying to be like kind of charming, and like I don't want to be, you know, don't want to be weird or anything, but can you, you know, it's like this whole, I'm not a creepy guy, but I'm gonna slide a really creepy question in there. And usually I respond with, I'm gonna stop you right there, the answer is yes, and I walk away, because I just do not have time. If you're so obsessed with penises, maybe you should try deep throating some, because that's really not what I think about day to day or ever. If anything, when I'm swallowing a sword, I think about how much of a badass female I am, and I hope that the other badass females in the audience are thinking about how fucking cool it is. So, and if you're a guy and you're watching and you've thought you might want to ask me this, maybe you could have a little think about what bringing your penis into a conversation with a stranger who has not asked about it, or has not mentioned it, or who is not flirting with you, have a little think about what kind of position you're taking there, because it's not really too cool. And we definitely need to think about these things, because there's a whole lot of misogyny and rape culture going on, and you know, even though you might think you're being cute and funny, you're actually contributing to that misogyny and rape culture. Yeah, okay, I won't get too deep on you guys. Oh fuck, I think I may have already. Anyway, so they're my most common questions, and that's my video. I hope you guys liked it, and please don't be too harsh, but I'd love to hear your feedback in the comments, and please share the video if you think it's not too awful, or maybe you think it's bad, you just want to laugh at me. Yeah, help me get some followers on my channel, because I think I have like 20 of you guys, which is bonza, but it would be cool if I have some more. Maybe it will motivate me to be a bit better at this. All right, cut. Rome or Germany, or obviously, if I can't, I'm just like throwing airport gang signs.